welcome back to Alter Talk, our third episode. Yay! My name is Ivy Prico, and I am your host here on Alter Talk. Today we have three gentlemen, amazing men who are going to help me understand why we have a gap between African Americans and Africans. Stay here, don't leave, come back. I'll be right back.
Hi everyone! I just wanted to say thank you all so much for making the time to come here today. I'm so happy to see all of you. I know that there were some few people, planners that I reach out to on Instagram, and you're here today, and I really appreciate you for coming.
Fool me once and it's shame on me, but you know you better tread carefully. Fool me twice, I'm your enemy. I'm your enemy.
When a good girl gone bad, what you gonna do? Run, go meet a dad. You don't wanna do. Well, this is Southeast Hall, but the ranking what best, y'all. Watch this. Love confession. She's a heartbreaker. She bend over backbreaker. Steaming hot water vapor. I wanna take her. She's a heartbreaker. She bend over backbreaker. Steaming hot water vapor. Oh, yeah. I wanna date her. So tell me why you do me so. So tell me why you do me so. Baby, me not gonna let you go. Girl, me not gonna let you go. So tell me why you do me so. Tell me why you do me so. Charlie, me not gonna let you go. Say me not gonna let you go. Me spend all me money, spend all me cash. Call you me honey, but you threw me pon trash. And you think say me gon' leave you like that? No way. Why you do me like that, yeah? Girl, I'm waiting on you, even if them hating on you. But me never send them.
So everyone, thank you so much for coming, and let's have an amazing time.
And welcome back. Thank you for holding on. Today we have three handsome men who are actually going to help me understand, and probably help you to understand, why there is a division between Africans and African Americans in America. So let's get right into it. I have today Mr. Castro. You know, Castro and I have known each other for quite some time, and I definitely believe that he's very educational in, you know, in this type of topic. So I'm very excited, as well as
I'm excited too.
I also have Mr. John here with me. Hey, John. How are you?
I'm doing great.
And then last but not least, I have Mr. Nana here as well, joining our conversation. How are you today?
Doing great.
Good. I hope we're not nervous. I know the men have been, you know, getting to know each other offset, and so they're pretty comfortable, you know? So when they're comfortable, I'm comfortable.
Yep.
So when I know what to say, they know what to say. So
Yeah.
let's dive into these questions. So before we actually dive into the questions, I found this statement that I actually want to read really quick. So the statement said, "It may seem ironic to the casual observer, for the most part, the African Americans wondered why their fellow African American brothers treated them as second-class citizens, while the African Americans wondered why their African student or their classmates seemed or feel to act superior to them. For the alternative perspective, neither groups seem to be justified in their unfounded beliefs about the other." So today, I'm happy to sit here with three men, and we're actually going to go and dive into these questions. So, gentlemen, anything that you want to say before? You know, I definitely want this conversation to be about unity, coming to a place where we, if not see eye to eye, understand where the other side is coming from, understand how we even got to this point, why there's a division, why African men and black men can't, you know, actually be brothers and sisters. Why is that? Right, gentlemen, so first question, is there a disconnect between the two groups?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Most definitely. In an everyday basis, everyday life, that line is drawn. It's drawn for many reasons that it shouldn't be.
Right.
Just a lack of awareness, education. I don't feel people tap into why things are the way they are. They just go with the flow, because that's the thing to do, other than being more informed within themselves. So the line is drawn is not drawn because your personal experience is more so drawn because the next person to you maybe feel that way. So I hang on to that. One thing we do as humans is we endure somebody else's pain.
Right.
And we make it our own, even if that ain't our experience, but it don't have to be our decision.
Right.
Our same thing. So we make something ours, and we hold on to that. And before you know it, it's negative energy that's passed on amongst us human brothers and sisters, African Americans and Africans.
So can it be a generational thing, like in terms of, okay, this is what I've seen my parents do or say about this specific thing, and I'm picking it up. Now my kids are gonna pick it up. Now my grandkids are gonna pick it up. So is it a generational curse to even say that?
I truly don't believe so. Just like, fathers don't get, I ain't gonna say they don't deserve respect for doing the right thing and raising their children, but you have to want to break the cycle. If you knew you're lacking of education. Most people pride themselves on their families and parents that you want to give your children better than what you got. Why not inform that child? It's a cycle that has to be broken. I wasn't informed about a lot growing up. As you can see, I have company today, so that's where it starts.
Yeah.
You see, it can follow, but it can is a cycle that could be broke. But you have to want to break it. You have to want to put the people after you in front of you, if that makes sense.
I mean, to me, this connection, I say yes and then no. Because during the 1950s, right? Africans and African Americans worked together when it came with independence in Africa and also the civil rights in America. Then after, the do-away of slavery, or the whole giving rights to African Americans in America came in about. That's when the separation started, developing, meaning that, now African American developed the sense of they have arrived in America now. Now the equality is in the system. So, looking at people from the Caribbean and Africa itself, leaving them behind, created a whole vacuum of chaos when it comes to this connection. So, with that, it was a yes or no. But when it comes to parenting, as in passing information out to your children, grandchildren, and so on, yes, it could be, based on the environment that the parents grew up in. So when we look at a situation like that, we could say if your parents or your grandparents had a lot of information coming in with slavery or where black people came from, you will grow up with a lot of education on that, based on the environment. As you evolve, you migrate, you tend to understand that you still need to acquire more information, more knowledge. So in the next generation will still have more information than our generation coming. So sharing information is there, you pass it on, but still, the receivers still have to improve and upgrade it in the information they have.
So what are the similarities between both groups?
Oh man, I feel like when we talk about the similarities, I feel like the wars that they fight internally, the issues they go to, ours is just in a different form. We won't know that we're going through the same battles within each other until we have that conversation. Like maybe the issues prior to him walking in this building are similar to mine, but just because we got alike, we draw that line when we could have just talked that out. And maybe this Black American could give him some insight and maybe help him better in his African, his life and how to take on himself. But we draw the lines just because your issues ain't mine, and we draw this fence as if we all not going through things.
It's like that's y'all's struggle.
As if he's any different than us. Problems is problems we all got, and the issues going into anything. So we draw the line psychologically, and we don't cut it off when it should have been cut a long time ago.
Follow-up question with that. So is it harder for men to connect from both groups, or do you think it's harder for women to connect on both groups? In terms of, if I see you, I can openly say hi, I can have a conversation. Like, is it difficult for you, let's put it in a personal perspective, is it difficult for you to have a conversation or start a conversation with an African man?
Well, not at all. That's what has me in this room.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to this gentleman in front of me
Right.
before he even spoke to me. I'm clearly hoping that's why
Right.
I'm here, wanting to know more, to receive more, to come a little better in than I did,
Right.
you know, to leave out a little better than I did coming in. So that's the reason why I'm here, just to understand, and maybe also just to be a light or outlook for my peers and the people that around me that look up to me.
Right.
They see that I move a certain way or carry myself in a certain manner towards whoever they are. Maybe they will follow.
Yeah.
For open-minded folks, it's not difficult. Closed-minded, it's gonna be difficult based on how you see, you know,
The other.
whether African American or African.
Right.
So, for example, African versus African American, how an African will see an African American will depend on how, you know, the message or the information they receive from society. And that will determine whether, you know, to introduce yourself, or, you know, when you see an African American, you can be like, oh, this guy,
Yeah.
man, this, you know, these folks, they're like this, you know, violence. You know, like, if you talk to them, you know, they probably gonna do some bad things to you in society, you know, the way.
Which is a stereotype.
Stereotype, you know,
Right.
the way we have put their name in the show as, I mean, look at how they live, right? Look at where they live, you know. So in that case, if you are not an open-minded person,
Right.
you will always be shy of not even trying to connect with them.
Right.
But an open-minded person will come in and say, okay, let me try and understand why this action is being put, right? Why are they doing this?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when you understand the cause, right, then you come back and say, okay, now, you know, you can actually go ahead and then open your arms.
Exactly.
You know, but
And so it's more like a lack of knowledge.
yeah, the education. So that's the issue, you know, for both, whether African American or African.
Okay.
The education, but then I will not blame. I will not put the blame and say, because an African might not, you know, engrave in information, you know, versus an African American, because even it's sometimes very difficult for an African to receive messages from or understand their own culture. Rather to move into another environment and, you know, choosing to understand that, because you were not built that way.
Right.
You know, you developed that way.
Right.
Your parents didn't teach you that way. The community, your aunties, your uncles didn't, you know, put you in the way where you know, you are always curious, or, you know, a creative thinker to analyze or access information.
Right.
So it just didn't happen like that, you know, for some Africans. But also African Americans, in, you know, with the experience in America here, you see that some, you know, it's always some were not allowed to, you know, to understand where Africans are coming from.
Right.
For example, you know, saying an African lives in on a tree is ignorance.
Right.
You know, that's you looking at the same skin as you, and then developing a mindset saying you live on a tree, so you're now on a level. And that itself will develop into, like, I think the quote that you read, right, when you said something in there, an African seeing an African American and an African being superior.
Right.
And it was never like that. It was just the way the system shaped, you know, our minds.
Exactly.
You know, because an African might, you know, get the opportunity to come to America with a scholarship.
Definitely.
To come to, you know, for school and stuff like that. An African American will look at that, I'm here, I'm not getting that same benefits, right? And then, you know, start developing, you know, hatred, hate, you know, in that, you know, situation, which I believe maybe if questions that is being asked to understand, you know, the current event, I think things will, you know, pile up and make make us, one folks as we were before.
So I've heard a lot. Did you want to add anything? Let me know.
Oh, that was pretty good.
He hit it on the head. So I wanted to. Well, I was reading a couple things and I realized that I wouldn't say most, but there are some people that don't know, like you said, about the history of everything. And so they tend to say, well, they sold us, they gave us up, they didn't like us, so they gave us away. And so a lot of people who aren't ready to have the conversation, first of all, love to use words like that, or statements like that. So is it true that Africans sold their own people?
I don't think they're sold.
Okay.
I don't think they have that capacity to sell young people.
So what happened then? If
Africans were forced into slavery.
Do you think?
1619. That's where the first slaves were shipped from Angola to Virginia. About 32 people, and they were forced.
Was there an exchange?
That was an exchange. That was forced.
Forced in what way?
Forced was in they capture you, and they put you on the ship.
Okay.
And then you are here.
So it was like they came and took them captive or kidnapped them in that way, or they actually came to the leaders and said, you have no choice, we're gonna take.
So in the history, right, based on the history,
right.
I think, so the Portuguese were the first to, I stand to be corrected, right, 1477, which, after 1477, I think the Netherlands came in, the British and then the Germans, right?
Right.
They stayed with, Africans for about 100 years peacefully, watching, moves and, doing trade, just come on trade, guns for materialistic stuff, mirror and so on and so forth, right? So everything was peaceful. But then in history, then come tribal war in Africa for tribes, trying to be dominant in their area, or grow, or evolve in other lands, capture, captive, put people in captivity and so on, right? And I guess to me, to where I got my history from, based on the fact that two tribes were fighting each other. So if you go in, you defeat the other tribe, you take them in as slaves. It got to a point where, they had to give in, because they were being forced.
So, not to cut you off, but were there slaves already in Africa before coming out? Or were they just regular?
Well, the first slaves that were captured were being forced. It wasn't because of tribal war or anything. I'm talking about later, because it started 1619 till 18 something.
Okay.
So between those, those years, it came in with tribal war, where when you are captured, just know you might not be coming back.
Right.
Before, African way of slaves were we capture you, you come work for us, servants, and then after maybe certain 5 years you could go back.
Right.
Yeah.
That was it.
And so is there an abuse of power then? If that's what you're saying in terms of you come work for us for a certain amount of time, then we would let you go. That's not being really a slave. That's just working under my authority. But once you come and take those certain people and then use them for a different use, it's like now you kind of change the dynamics.
That's why the whole conversation about slavery, it changes because of being forced. So when you are being forced of your will, then it's something different. It creates a whole issue, problem, systemic, and that's why we are discussing this today.
Right. And so is there an abuse? Obviously there is, but there was an abuse of power somewhere down the line, and because of that, do you think that it was intentional? Do you think that the slave masters intentionally, systematically, mentally, emotionally thought of, okay, we're gonna treat them like this, we're gonna try to change their mind like this, because we want them to be formed like this. We want them to think like this. We want them to act like this.
Well, I won't step in. I'm not necessarily African. I do consider that my brother sitting across the table. I just feel like we all, as human, as any being or living being on this earth, is, you're here to grow.
Right.
We all are like sponges. We all here to soak up information and to evolve and grow. You put anyone inside a box, whether it be an animal, human, or you keep them to a certain limit and they can go but so far.
Right.
You begin to trip on yourself naturally, mentally. You begin to trip on yourself, and that brain of yours becomes a standstill. I think a lot we talking about here is mental health. When you keep people to a certain box and they can't grow, they can't experience, they can't take in more, they can't receive information, you put their brains in a standstill.
Yeah.
And physically, you will become at a standstill because mental is everything. When you're not right up top, you can't do nothing down box. So I think that's just one of those things, whether you be from Africa or Black American, and slavery is done differently here, and we'll tap into that, but I just feel like we're all living beings and we're put here to grow.
Right.
When you put us to a certain extent, we can't go no further than that, whether it be abuse of authority or whatever the case is, you're going to trip over yourself.
Yeah.
Automatic.
It is what it is. Follow up off of that. So is there a difference between African slavery and African American slavery? Because there are some people, I'm not even joking, there are some people that, and when I say people, I'm talking on the African side, that think that American slavery has nothing to do with their history. And so their history only goes maybe up until, I know Crown of Me, I don't know how far back it goes because they don't know.
Yeah.
And so they speak off of, oh, well, that's not my people. Or they're,
I totally agree. I think there's a lack of not being informed and not knowing and wanting to know. I don't think a lot of our slavery, my definition of slavery is totally different than history. It's what I see around me. Just like I say, growing up as a kid that's, not informed on what's going on.
Right.
You begin to search for things and you form your own definitions. Till I feel me being a project kid and seeing people only, their limitations go as far as that neighborhood. You understand? They build a system that is enough to keep you within that box.
Wow.
You understand? When that box is really a stepping stone to get you out. But if they take away your resources, your lack of information, whether you say you somebody in that box and you need mental help, there's no resources.
Right.
Especially in the unfortunate parts of town to go get that help. Right? There's no resources. Where you gotta go get your resources? On the other side of the bridge or on the other side of the town.
Yeah.
Right? But they're gonna turn you away. Why? Because you only have maybe state assistance, whatever the case is, which is not enough to cover anything.
Right.
So they send you back to that box. That box, they contain you within that box. Slavery is different. It's because they go to these less fortunate neighborhoods and they're looking to lock you up. Not necessarily because you're doing anything wrong, but you're less fortunate in this box and you're trying to survive within this box.
Right.
If you put a police at the corner of each corner of this box, you're bound to do something. It's because you're trying to make a way to survive within this box. Every person that gets locked up, whether they're black, white, or purple, but I feel like it's definitely targeted towards Black Americans, Africans. They look to lock you up. It's because that state gets a check for each individual. If you be locked up for 4 hours or 10, they get a check for you. I feel like my definition of slavery is different. It's because they contain within a box. Just like if you was on a ship, they keep you piled on top of each other to the point that you can't do nothing but mentally trip. They take away your resources. They put poison stores on every corner, which is liquor, alcohol, and that
You
pain.
eventually feed into it.
You feed into it. That pain that you're enduring, you think you're getting rid of it by drinking, but you only numbing it for the time being. It only enhances that emotion, that hurt. And you dwell and you start feeding on the people that's within that box. It's a different type of slavery, of course, but it's my definition of slavery because this is what I've been introduced to. But it's done. And Section 8, when you're paying $120 for rent, you should know that's a stepping stone, right? But you don't know it's a stepping stone when you take away the resources. I have seen people financially been able to get themselves together, right? Have a car, have a job, but they never left the neighborhood because they never made it out mentality-wise. They never grew. You could be a 4-year-old person and a 16-year-old guy. But if you never got out of that mentality, you figured that's all that's for you. You bettered your job, you bettered your vehicle, you bettered everything that you want for yourself. Why did having a place in that box didn't leave with it? You understand?
Right.
Like, I'm set, this is all I need. I'm great where I'm at. I got my place, I got my car, I got my upgraded job. Why your mentality didn't want enough that you left that box? Because it take away your resources to want to leave that box. So that's all you know.
Right.
When you got 30 years of being in a box, once you got 5 years that you probably could get out, you don't know how to recognize that that's the opportunity to get out. You spent your whole life in that box.
Wow.
So that's my definition of Black American slavery, how it's done.
I'll let you go. I'll let you go and then.
I think that's very impactful. Way you say it, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I think going back to at least like the basis of it, seeing if it was different in Africa, if it was different in the U.S. It completely was, because slavery in Africa and even other parts of the world, slavery has been in our society since way back, since biblical days all the way back till then. But the thing is that there was a motive, there was a different motive, distinguishing the two. In Africa, like we stated earlier, like it was from warfare and from legal punishment. If you were a burglar or something like that, you committed a crime or something. Then they would put you, they would put you to work, and then they would put them in that system. But the thing is that with American slavery, this was stripping you of your identity. This was stripping you of your heritage. This was stripping you of opportunity. And that's not what they did in Africa. Africa was just punishment over, like, oh, we got your tribe, people, will keep them for a little bit, work them, and then they could go. Because you were released, but they weren't stripping you of your heritage. They weren't stripping you of things like that. So there was a complete difference, because once they brought them over, on the ships to the U.S., they knew exactly what they were doing, taking them, displacing them, and detaching them from everything that they knew. So there was a huge difference there.
And to go off of that, I was having a conversation with some of my female friends, and one of them mentioned that America is now suffering from taking the Bible and using it in power to control.
I was about to. That was my complete.
Yes.
That would be the new way, but I'm not necessarily going to focus on just the Bible, just religion itself. For the African slavery, it's more of education, right? Being able to understand things in your own way is very difficult. We focus more on what others say and we follow it, but it really doesn't fit our program. So what do we have to do? Reverse it, come back, analyze it, assess it, and then ensure that this really fits our lifestyle.
Exactly.
So in this case, I think our slavery now would be a mental slavery now. We're just fighting, our mind. You want to do something, but then because maybe this religion said this, so now you have a fear factor, kind of like in you that won't allow you to push yourself in pursuing, whatever plan that you have drawn, right? So, for now, slavery in Africa is just the mental thing.
And we see it now.
If I could add to that, that's part from where faith comes in and where they use, the Bible and try to use it against, the demographic. Like you can see, like it's the same principle. I see it with like a fork. So with silverware, you can use a fork to set a nice table to have a nice dinner, to eat. But then you can also use a fork or a knife to stab somebody. And it's the same exact way they took approach with religion. They didn't have the understanding of the tool, so they use that tool against the demographic.
And you mentioned motives earlier too. Their motives.
But then I have I have this right. This is since civilization, right? It's all being like okay, I'm the strongest, right? So just for me, just questioning you too, right? So do you guys think that using this, based on what you said, do you think it was wrong, right, for what with the whole, manipulation and, forcefully forcing us into believing in their way of worship, that has really put us in this pandemic that we are in right now, which, we can't really think for ourselves.
Right.
Do you think that was wrong? Because when you look at civilizations, it has always been like that. You capture, a tribe, then they then become one of you.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So in that case, then they just being them, right? Or do we have issue as black people? Did we ever had issue? You see what I'm saying? So these are questions that we also as black folks need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, right. And I think that's a lot of individual, within the individuals truly. We'll have to tap into that ourselves, but it takes two individuals that's not alike to join forces to make a bigger discussion. That goes into education. Like I told him, I was just like, that could be my brother. And I could look at that as a kid, but he's introduced into a room because he's not from here. He's introduced as a foreign exchange student. Why he has to have that label instead of understanding a student? He's got the information, learn.
He's not a part of it.
Right, he's not a part of us. And if you introduce somebody at a young age that's not informed, not necessarily given the knowledge to their parents and things like that, you label that person as that when they look just like you. So it starts with institutes and everything. Just like I told him, me and him had said we was to start a recreational center for 8 to 10 year olds. We can tweak that program that it fits everybody, no matter, you know what I'm saying, Africans or Black Americans. But you have these institutes that's already built, and it's built with separation, when it shouldn't be.
So you had mentioned a 40-year-old with a 16-year-old mentality, right? And one thing that came into my head was the depression, the therapy, and the anxiety that Black people face in America. They don't like talking about it, they don't like going to therapy, they don't like asking for help. It's like, okay, I'm going to deal with what I'm going through, I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to have a tantrum, and I'm going to keep it moving. Why is it that way? Why aren't we able to ask for help when we need it mentally?
I feel like a lot of that is it's being turned away. You understand? These institutes, these places that you go to get help, right? That I talked about, that's on the other side of town.
Right.
You turn down because of technicality, or we're not paying enough on our insurance. But the fact is, somebody that needs help. You know what I'm saying? You identify those things with yourself, but when you reach out once and you're turned away, it's bad enough that you have to skip your side of town to go to these places that have resources, and you turn around when you get over that side, it boxes you in to the point you shut down. You stop looking for answers. You stop wanting to know more about yourself and how can I get help. It's because it goes so far before it becomes, whether it's a money, a policy, PPO, HMO, and all that good stuff. Which shouldn't matter when the fact is I'm somebody that came to an institute to get help, and that's what y'all here to get. I don't care whether it was 3 months of therapy for 6 months, 6 months on, 6 months off, whatever. I understand there's business involved, but at the same token, you turn these people away. So these people will come in, and then clearly if you skipped over your peers to go get help within the institute, clearly you thought your peers or people that's beside you couldn't help you.
Right.
So you become boxed in. And then we say, hey, John, what's going on with you? Let's talk. Same what's up on your mind? I'm good. You know why? Because he's willing to skip over you. So what makes you think he's willing to open up to you? Because he started with his brother or his sister first before going to that institute.
And most people, African-wise, they don't even believe that they have any, or that these things exist. Depression, anxiety, mood swings, all of that. They don't like talking about it, they don't believe it exists. So even if they're going through it, it's not talking about it. Why is that?
But that itself, that's where we bring in religion, right?
Okay.
Because religion blocks that chain for most Africans, because then you're like, okay, God will be able to, take me through this journey.
Pray about it.
Pray. Go and read this verse in the Bible. You will be fine. Go to the church, right? To the pastor. Go to the mosque. They will pray for you. You're gonna be fine. not realizing that this is a mental issue.
Right.
This is something scientific.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have herbalists, and they will take care of this easily. But guess what? There's a tag against herbal people that they are what? Evil. They are witches. You see what I'm saying? So they view the misunderstanding, how we interpret, you know, our own culture, right? Beliefs, because of us being forced into something that was not supposed to be for us. There's no problem with that. But the way, you know, we view and interpret it, because guess what? When the Bible was handed to you, it was written in what? English, right? We didn't understand English. So how will you be able to like translate, you know, verses in there?
Right.
How will you, you know, correlate with the message in the Bible? You know what I'm saying? For you to, you know, be able to judge or pass like advice to your neighbor, to the people that follows you, it's never possible. So there's no way for some of Africans to understand mental problems, depression, stress, and so on. Everybody in general, everybody kind of have like a mental problem. Where it start with stress, you know, develops to depression and so on in the next stages, right? But we just don't want to like, because you know, the mindset is if you put yourself in the down drain, thinking that you are going wayward, right? You think you are mad and so on. The moment you start thinking negative about yourself, it actually start happening, right? And that's just the mindset of some people. And I believe with education, right, we can, you know, eliminate that kind of thought process and then change the whole, you know, society.
That is true. I want to talk about stereotypes. Stereotypes is why we are here. Stereotypes is why we are divided. Stereotypes are why some of us don't like some of us, why we look at each other different. Even within Ghana itself, within, you know, tribes and stuff, they look at each other.
That's what
they look at each other different. So it's all over the place. But for us, it's weird how you look at your own kind, or for a female to look at another female that looks just like me, and kind of give her a stereotype that, oh, she probably ghetto, or oh, she don't, you know how to talk to me. So let's talk about stereotypes.
I'll let you go first.
Stereotypes, Of course, we see how it affects our society.
Tell us some that you've heard.
About Africans that, you know, we live in trees, we live in huts, you know, we're what is the word? Like we eat with our hands.
African booty scratch.
That's a popular one. What does that mean?
Oh yeah, I couldn't even tell you.
John, what is that?
I couldn't even tell you. We don't know what it means.
I don't know.
It absolutely means nothing. I say it in a movie some time ago.
Okay.
A black culture movie, and even from when I was a kid, and it just stuck. There's no meaning behind it. When you even just break these words up,
what is the African?
And what does that equal up to? African.
Was the African in the movie scratching his booty?
No, but this was a black American. This was an actor that just said this, right? And for some reason, I don't know why that line was so funny, but it just stuck.
I mean, it's just like watching Coming to America, and then they, you know, I forgot this. There was a scene where I think Eddie Murphy was yelling outside. Of something, you know, because with the accent, it's like you go to school, and then your friend sees you like in the hallway, and they just yell.
So where did the clucking come into play? Because I've heard that with the clucking, people will cluck at you. Like, where's that from? John.
I'll tell y'all, I'm gonna be real for, you know, being a representation of John. I never did those things. Even being a kid, If I didn't understand it, I didn't do it. Yeah, truly. Like if it didn't make sense to me, even in my little younger world, I didn't do it. I never treated people like that. Truly, like if I didn't understand it, if I came to give you an answer, if somebody was to call me out on that cluck or whatever I did to somebody, if I'm not able to back that up, I just never did that, even as a kid. Like never had my reasoning, and I thought I knew enough, and I did it. So be it, but I never crossed that bridge. Truly, I don't know why things are done. I think it's a lot of ignorance into play, and just like I said, I think a lot of when we talk about mental health and things that's going on with Black Americans and Africans is the desire to grow, to absorb information, to know why you're doing things. I'm somebody that believes everything has a purpose, and even what you say out your mouth. You understand? I feel like a lot of people will tread carefully and watch what they say if they know everything it has to say. But that comes into like religion, my beliefs, morally, how I am. So I feel a lot different than the next. Now, all I could do as being a person of God, and in my own way, is to be some type of influence to the brother that's sitting next to me or in front of me. Now, he as a grown man, he's going to take what he take from me. I can't decipher that for him. He has to say, this makes sense what John does, this doesn't. That's no love lost. But that's about knowing that my name is John, and he is who he is, and I got to be okay with that. But that don't mean we can't join forces.
So like, to me, based on my research, I believe it all started like when Africans started coming to America, where it's kind of like they, the African can speak another language, right? Coming to America can be, or will not be able to construct a fully sentence in English. And you see them like in the elder stage. You start making that kind of sound, right? In that case, you already put fear in the African. You see what I'm saying?
Fear to speak the language?
No, fear to open up to you.
Okay.
Fear to be who they actually are.
Right. To you.
Right.
So in this case, they will just stick to themselves, develop themselves, and then move out. And then when they move out, an African American will look at this in a way that, wait, we all live in the same neighborhood. So you just came like 2 years ago. What do you think you're going? And now kind of like started the whole hatred, and the stereotype, like, you as an African, you come to America, your parents or your friends will be like, man, I got people. Don't play with them. You see what I'm saying? So in that case, you be like, whoa, these people they must be crazy. Like, these people are crazy. You go to school, they come to you like, hey, I just come to school, right? To learn and to go home, something like that, and then that's it. But then with education, like our generation, we have really truly we have eliminated that gap, and build trust between us, because we all have good friends, whether African American, whether African, Caribbean, we are all building together. And it's just, I understand our parents, because their mindset was kind of like, let me come to America and then, go back. Come, grab me some money and go back. And it just didn't happen that way. So it's just how they were built up. So we can't blame them, but we can blame our generation if our generation is still trying to act the same way as our parents.
Right, yeah, you definitely don't blame that. But I think the worst stereotype of them all as a Black American, just having ears to the streets and actually just listening, is how Africans treat their women. The reason
Let's talk about that, John.
I actually wanted to talk about that just because I consider women queens.
Right.
I consider myself a king. So when you talk about queens, y'all get the worst rep for how y'all treat y'all women. As this is what's said, beneath y'all, y'all control them. They not to speak back.
He getting ready to
But you know what? This is what's told. Even if that's the case, without understanding, is that what it really is? Or say you I have a brother that's African, right? Understanding is that what's actually going on, and then maybe finding the reason why. You understand? Like that's not even done. It's just given. Right. You walk past me, right? You clothed, you in your gear, you good, but people look at your gear, right? They look at you. They figure you just like I told you just got here.
Yeah.
He's been here. He's been here since he was 15. But they look at the clothing and figure like we haven't rubbed off on him yet. How come he not dressed like us? He is who he is. That's what he chooses to wear, so big. But they get the worst rep for how they treat their women. I think that's the number one thing. I have heard a lot. I heard it all. I think that's something that's like universal. If we was in California right now, that's the rep, and and it's not. I can't validate that. You understand? I truly, honestly, don't have many brothers that's African. True, and there's no reason of why. I just, I have never had a brother that was African. It's not a problem at all. But I never even had the chance to even talk to one to see if that's valid or true.
I think your point is valid, right? But it was based on the culture, right? Where they grew up. Looking at the culture itself, women were not supposed to work. So the men were the one working. So the woman is always at home, taking care of the children, and then making, and doing all these cleaning. Coming to America is a different ball game. Now we're looking at a different culture, like how things are being run in America. You have to work to pay your bills. So now the woman is going to work, and the man also is going to work. The man is still expecting the woman to still do the same things at home. You see what I'm saying? So it's the education where there's some miscommunication there between both. To sit down and understand that, it's just not going to happen. I mean, our parents' generation, it's possible for them to act that way. But for our generation, we have to do better.
And I'm speaking from a generation point, just like evolving and growing everything we're talking about. We know what was done before us, and that was their choice. And it doesn't have to be ours. And individually, I could take care of John. You could take care of you. But it's like I said, you have 2 people in the room, or 3 people in the room, that wants to change the dynamic of education, to join forces, and start an institute, whether it be 1 that turns into 3, that turns into 10.
But you see, we do treat our women queens though, but it's just that our women came in, and the way they seen how African American, men were very romantic. And that's the difference.
That's the only difference.
That's the main difference, right? It's because,
So you're laughing, so you thought more, huh?
You funny.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think that created like a whole kind of issue between the African man and African American. Like, why do you have to compare? Because we came from a different culture.
So it's like having an understanding of why you not are the way y'all are, and that's what I'm saying. That's what just because I don't do something like you doesn't divide.
And men will always follow whatever that they were taught, right? Women easily can change.
That's
they learn and then they adapt and then they change quickly.
And that's the whole reason why we wanted to have the conversation with the women, because they're more easy to adapt. I do feel like a victim of being a male, and some things I can't change is we able to identify the ways that we get stuck. Then we're not able to do nothing about it. I may be stuck in something now that I'm not even psychologically taking that. But best believe if I find it, I'll dig into it. But we as men, we don't adapt as quickly as women. It's just certain things we're good at, certain things we're not. And I ain't saying that we can't want better as males. But it's just things that y'all naturally have over us. The mental capacity to want more, to desire to grow, and to get out of your own way, whether that person is African or African American. I feel like.
But you see, then I have something, right, with the queen, right? African American women also sees, You have.
After you get. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead and say it.
This one I can't.
Go ahead.
Because I'm gonna go back.
I'm gonna go ahead.
No, because it's a tough situation. I can't let African men like slide with this rap continually high. Because the thing is that, you know, honestly, you gotta understand the culture, you gotta understand tradition, you gotta understand how things have been. In the country, men were raised to not show emotion, to do what you gotta do, go work, go do what you have to do, come home and take care. That was their way of showing love. Like if I provide for you, if I make sure like, you know, you get what you need, that's love. But you know, of course, the way we show love has evolved. And people have grown and known that, okay, no, it's just more than just providing. And just more than just doing those things. You have to like actually like talk about them, be on a mental, emotional level, like cater to those things. So the thing is that from our culture, it was different. You can't blame them. That's how they were. That's how our forefathers were. You know what I'm saying? They did what they had to do. They took care of home, and that's it. Like, and then the woman, you know, take care of home. Traditionally, that's how it was. But you know, it's different in the Western world. So yeah, I don't want African men to get the bad rap of that. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't prevalent yet. Was it a thing? Yeah.
Is it still a thing?
But then I don't know if you've heard this, right? I don't know if you've heard this too, but I think that African American women usually says African men treat them good, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of like I don't, you know.
But you know what? I think a reason what that is, Ben. Opposites attract, and what I tell you, and the reason why I'm saying opposites, we brothers and sisters, we are much alike. But with that line drawn, we all are attracted to something that's not where we from. They don't have the same upbringing. It's culture, how we was raised, how you came up. You naturally draw to that other sex or that other person. It's because naturally your upbringing, mine is totally different. You have plenty to talk about. It's an experience, even if you don't want it to be. That's just like an African woman dealing with me. She was like, it's an experience within itself because it's like the way you interact, the way he may show love or appreciation. Everything is hitting a different element to her because she never experienced it. So I think we all get drawn into the fact that it's the opposite of what we know. So you fall in love with that more than the fact of, do I actually like this African? Women say, oh, they treat us better, but is it this experience because it's something new, or is it really that the way that person treats you? You understand? Because there's a big difference. I just never did nothing like this before. This felt like the greatest thing I ever did. This felt like the newest thing you ever did because you never experienced it. Some people get that twisted and they look at it as those treatments are loyalty. Yo, this is this different than that.
Why can't you treat me that way?
And you compare, and you say, they treat me like this one. And then on top of that, I'm going to tap into these women.
Don't do it because you know.
The treatment amongst men. Just like you're saying, like they say African, treat them better, right? You take that same mentality, you take it back to your American men, right? All's over against us as being black. Anyway, right?
We're sorry.
So you compare, right? They treat me like that on that side. That side. There should be no side. That draws a line. It draws a competition. It draws a competing. When we go out, like I told you, you in a spot of a capacity of a 500 capacity club, it's 12 Africans in there. This is a spot where the Africans be at, because it's 12 about to make up for that 500. You understand? Everything becomes competition, because now you're doing numbers.
No, it's true though. I mean,
it sucks. It's like even if 12 Africans standing, I gotta go use the bathroom. I'm gonna go with you. Americans standing over there by the bathroom where the doors is. Might go later. You know what I'm saying?
Not right now.
You understand? Because more so like you said, that anger. I ain't trying to go over there and start nothing. I'm just trying to go to the bathroom. I'll just go when we can get That fence is wherever you go, and it shouldn't be. It's a fence. It's psychologically, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, we just need to open up and then, start giving each other like space in expressing ourselves.
And the proper respect.
Yeah,
the proper respect. Like where you come from is not where I come from, and that's okay.
Right.
We are similar. We are similar in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about. Like it's funny. Everybody want to have somebody they got common stuff with their brothers, whether it's a love partner or stuff like that. just because I ain't from where you from, or the way, you know, like they look at it as you either different, you better, or you believe. We just came up in different things.
But I've seen that about us black people. We kind of like, we always want to compete with each other instead of like coming together, you know, to build one, let's say, idea, you know, and then develop it, right? We always want to compete. So let's say you start, you know, I see a lot with our women. On social media, every woman is actually doing makeup tutorials.
MUAs.
I mean, just look at that. Every woman.
But is it a competition, or does everyone have the same talent? Like what?
No, the talent is there. I mean, makeup, like you wear makeup, right? We all know.
Right.
You wear it. That's like a talent that you have.
Okay.
But like, let's say you came together with 3 or 4 people, right? And guess what? You guys develop a business plan. Instead of just doing like, you know, the tutorial and then that's it. Business plan, come up with a makeup business, like sell, you know, build, you know, a generational wealth, you know, and that's what we're looking for. But like, it's like the moment somebody starts something, right? Everybody want to do the same thing too. And you know, we were discussing about trend. It's like we all want to follow trend.
Yeah.
We never want to be creative.
We never want to set out. And then on top of that, individually, you'd be surprised how broad we are as Black Americans or Africans. And we all just, say we started our own trend. So everybody in this room, you got his trend, I got mine. And it just keep multiplying. You really don't realize how creative we actually are in our minds. Because everybody follows one leader when there's probably a whole room full of leaders.
Right.
And everybody got their niche. Whether you good at makeup, you good at all, I'm good at reading books. Everybody having their own trend and subject, then following one. Well, we all got something that's special about every last one of us. And there's not enough of us that's strong enough. And it's funny, the fact is, there's a lot of people that have strength, but they can't identify that strength. They're just like me training out for 10 years. Everybody has a 6th gear. You get to a point that physically you're tired, but your brain takes over. And you don't feel nothing. You become numb to everything, right? So a lot of people that are strong right now, they don't even know that they have the 6th gear. They have a point that they can exceed what's told to them. What they entirely wanted to know more, you understand? But they never exceed that point, and they're stronger than what they think they are, but society, brutality, the cops, the system. You already know the system is lopsided, so no secret.
Yeah, because you can go in a room full of Black folks and African American, and then you just be like, okay, I want everybody to put, you know, their business in the spotlight. And you have multiple like people in the same business competing each other. Right? In this case, you're not gonna make money. Guess what? Because there's a few people that you guys are targeting, and you have to fight for them.
It's like African markets, you know, especially out here. There'll be one in this street. You go down 2 more streets, it's another one. You go down. They all.
See, and that's why I brought this up, but I wanted to ask, like, is it our nature? Because I wanted to understand if that was our nature, like
to compete.
No, to compete, because it seems like it's been since. I mean, for the past century, it's been like that.
It's getting real juicy. We're gonna take a real break, and we'll be right back.
Cool.
Climbing up this mountain, climbing up twice, hoping that I make it this time, but I'm so done with hoping. 'Cause hoping leads to failing, leads to falling down this mountain, falling down again. Boom, boom, heartbeat still beating. In the end, I'm choking. But that's just what they wanted, so I get up off the ground and I shake it out. Ra-da-da, come look at me now, look at me now. I'm not here to talk, I'm not here to talk. I'm just here to walk the walk. I'm gonna make it up this mountain, make it to the top. Show them what I made up, show them what I've got. I will, 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 I will. So before you swallow yours just like a pill.
Question about you bringing up women and this and that and whatnot and all these things. So you mentioned that there's sometimes women treat African men or African American women treat African men different, as well as African women treating, Black men different. And for me, I can speak on a personal level with this. I've dated both sides, and the culture difference is there. That is very true. The relationship difference is there. It is very true. How a Black man has treated me has been very different from how an African man has treated me. And sometimes it can go both ways. One thing I've realized is I'm able to be myself in terms of, vocally and stuff to an African American man. I'm not able to do that to a certain extent with an African man because the mindset is closed. The mindset is only to, not all, but the ones that I've dealt with have only been to a certain place where they don't, it's all or nothing. It's what they say, it's how I think, that's it. And so I think that women have a lot of power, can have a lot of power. And in this instance like this, I believe that women can help bridge this gap. Actually, I think women are the solution to bridging this gap. Because if I've been on both sides and I see that, okay, on this side, they think like this or they say certain things, and on this side they think like this and say like this, I, as a female, can be the one to say, look, let's sit here, let's talk about it, right? Okay. And so I don't know necessarily, I can't speak for all females, but I do know that there's a place where we can come to. There's a place that women have to understand that you're dealing with men who are hurt already. And so, y'all can counter that, but...
Yes. I think my thing is, the most thing that women underestimate within themselves is their powers to, they're natural born leaders.
Right.
It's in their blood. Whether they stayed home and they were taking care of kids, it don't mean that they had the ability to do more. In capacity, mental capacity is just so much bigger. Even whether their culture had them aligned to just doing this, but y'all are naturally born leaders. Yeah. And I feel like to bridge that gap, I feel like it has a lot to do with women, because some of that fence I talk about is put into play when you take one upbringing, how a man treated you as an African man, and you put that fence up to say that this Black American man treated me different, but you don't put it as I had two different experiences, and these were my experiences collectively.
Right.
The tone, the delivery,
right,
makes it an attack, whether it's one on the other. They do this.
Right.
That mentally put a man's mind into competing. What he has over me, what they have over me.
I don't want to cut you off, but how can a female try to build up her Black male if the Black society, the Black male society is, breaking her down, calling her names, only seeing her as an object?
You said the Black society calling
Black males.
Black males calling her names.
How they treat their queens,
In what way?
In terms of, let's say, okay, you can go on social media, you can be in a room full, in a hot room like this, full of men, and not you guys per se, but they can say some very harsh words toward a Black female to bring her down. How do you expect someone who you know are the same to bring a female down, but you guys expect us to also bring you guys up? But we're objects to y'all, right? Some Black males see Black females.
We see women, right? Depending on, like I said, I'm not going to speak for all.
Right.
I'm speaking for myself.
Right.
I see a woman, every woman, as my mother.
Okay.
So I would treat you like a queen and also like a mother.
Okay.
And I expect you to treat me like I'm your child. As a man, right? When I come home, women treat their men like children. They console them, bring them at home. That's why women is like, it's like the leader, like naturally.
Someone might say that they don't want to now treat you like a child. That's not their job.
No.
So
then you actually eliminating some factors that really build that bond. Right?
So men like to be treated like.
We like to be nourished. We
Never
like to
nourished,
be
yeah.
tended to, is what he necessarily means. Just tended to. And we ain't saying build. What you talking about is like women feel like, I don't want to do that, or I'm not doing that at this age, or something like that.
He should be, you already said it.
They're not, we ain't actually to build a man.
Right.
We're just saying, check on him thoroughly. Our obstacles are great. We go through them daily. We're reminded that how much we grow as men, that society is not willing to let us go but so far. So we endure that pain. We hold on to that. Sometimes you bring it home. If you tend to that man, check on him, but he's sitting on the couch silently and you're able to just, you all right? Is anything you want to talk about?
We want to build this guy, but yet, you know, most of the men are fighting mental problems because, you know, they have to come out pay zillion child support, and it's
Most.
Really, most men, some of them, you know what I'm saying, and it's really draining to really fight.
Y'all don't think females have?
Most
He said
definitely, most definitely do. I don't think it's quite, I think, I ain't saying that y'all don't, but it's quite lopsided. One thing I can tell you this is, I'm not saying that one is greater than the other or less important. I'm definitely not saying that. The reason why I say it's lopsided is because you normally know when you step into a court system, whether it's about family court or you there for a trial or whatever you're there for, you know, it's lopsided. You know the system is built against you. I've been in a point in my life that I had to go to court to handle family court. And I've been handled a certain way, being the male in the situation.
Right.
You handle very aggressively, even if your tone is proper, whatever the case is, because their minds are made up about you. The system's already built up against you. You understand? I'm not saying that y'all don't have your obstacles too, but I have seen that same situation reverse otherwise, and they have granted the woman what she wanted, and the man has suffered the consequences for it. And you know, I feel like when you're reminded of those things, you don't know if you're being pulled over by a cop is gonna be the last time you're pulled over by a cop. You understand? You have little ones to raise. I can tell you right now, you know, if I could put it on speakerphone, I would. I didn't want a son. I love my son dearly, but I didn't want a son. And the reasons why were all the reasons that's going on now. I didn't want to raise a little black boy in America.
Yeah.
It may sound selfish, but it's the truth. I was able to get through my obstacles. You know, God still allowed me to be here today. But I didn't want to relive that.
Yeah.
If my child has to go through it, so do I. You understand? And now I have to relive that and try to get him through. I'm worrying about if my kid goes to playground, is he going to return from that playground? Because the hunt is on. That's the reason why I didn't want him for truly.
And I like it's tough because we can go back and forth all day with obstacles that we both have, that are both presented against black men and black women. But at the end of the day, it depends on the individual and their understanding, especially in this case with the understanding of love. Like the craziest part is in American society, love is defined by one word. It's only love. But the basis of where love came from, the root, there's like almost 4 different words that encompass what love really is. So the thing is that if a person has no knowledge of what love is within themselves, how could you expect them to treat you in a certain way if they don't have that understanding? Like individuals have to take responsibility. Like of course, demographic plays a part. Economic situations, all that, where you've grown up, all that plays a part. And because we're creatures of habit, so we do what we learn. But the thing is that individuals have to take accountability and be like, yo, I'm at this point. Like, if you really love somebody, what are you gonna do for them?
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna sacrifice for them? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, teach.
Yeah, it has to be taught. It has to be taught.
No, you have to teach. You don't have to punish them.
He's speaking from
But you know,
He's speaking from experience.
But it's very true though. You know, trauma is taking over.
Trauma is taking over.
Experience is the best teacher. Trauma is taking over, and trauma has blocking a lot of people's blessings. And when I mean blessings by somebody that can be your savior, somebody that can be your future king or queen, somebody. The only way that person can lead and follow by showing love in many ways is by, expressing that. But like you said, you're not exposed or you don't know the definition of it and what goes into it. You're not able to pin that out in no type of way. I have dealt with women that I showed them affection, and that I would say over the top than the majority rules are, or the supposedly typical. They're not able to identify the difference between what I'm doing.
They just didn't appreciate it.
Or is it they don't know how to receive it? Some people don't know how to receive
They don't know how to receive it because of now this generation. You have social media, you have reality TV,
Right.
you have your peers, right? Peer pressure.
Yeah.
You want to fit in.
Right.
So just having a conversation with your girlfriends, and they telling you, okay, this is how my man's treat me. They start comparing these benefits, right? And
Well,
say,
Cindy's
okay, my
boyfriend got her flowers.
yeah, oh yeah. So why didn't you give me a flower?
Yeah.
Like you're not romantic.
Right.
And now that's like very stressful for them. Like you're not romantic. Like come on, we've been together for 2 years. You haven't bought me a flower.
Right. And one thing I will have to say, the comparison, you gotta stop. I mean, regardless of what your experience is, my experiences is not yours, and that's okay. How can we come to a meet? And I feel like until women come to a point that they're willing to, I understand that maybe not to identify what love is or how it's to be expressed. But I can tell you this, like, it's just like if you don't know your self-worth and morally, just be in tune with yourself, have a certain class and respect for yourself, your partner should be a reflection of you. Anybody you're dating, anybody you're even given a privilege to know you on a personal level, be in your space on a personal level, whether they have some type of permission to your body, your mental, your everything, they should breathe the same air you do. There's so many people, men and women, that's all. Even, I hate to say it, brothers, sorry. Just because we men don't mean we can't value our bodies as men and who we give it to. I don't feel like that's enough going around. We throw a lot around. We throw a lot around with our bodies and physically to the point that that's the only way you know of an expression. Mm-hmm. I feel like the biggest form of the expression is being morally in tune. Only allowing somebody to deal with you on a mental and physical basis that's worthy of it. Whether they man or woman, we throw that around as an expression. The basic expression is hold your composure, showing your self-value, your self-worth. I'm sure you heard of the term, a man will never treat a woman like she don't treat herself. Like if she has value, she...
So for us, like, the whole issue now is most of us are religious, right? We don't believe in love your neighbor as yourself. So the moment you get into a relationship, you need to understand that you need to love your partner as yourself. So you don't need to do anything that will hurt your partner, because your partner does the same thing to you.
That's good. And
that's what I'm saying. So the moment you understand that,
but you know what becomes in self-worth. If you're treating yourself and going right by you, when you fully get there, you can't help but treat others. Yeah, right. And that's true, because I'm a victim of that. My last 5 years of life have been totally different than they ever been before. Because I was a kid that was worried about finishing on top of the food chain. Didn't care who I hurt in order to get over, to get to, just as long as I finished on top. But I'm somebody that has written my wrongs and truly believe in the energy and love you put into the universe and to the people. That same love will be returned. Now, of course, it's not going to be reciprocated in the same type of way, but the universe has spoken to me in many ways, in forms and fashions. Most people look for things to happen the same way that they gave it out, and you miss so much by looking for it the same way that you gave it out. It won't be returned in that way.
And it sounds like there's a lot of self-love. You got to know who you are.
I think most of this conversation you're talking about is for people that obey.
See, you have to know who you are, but you have to be open-minded to understand that people act differently.
Right, and I was trying to really just say that because we are Christians and believers, most of that has to be found in the Bible. Most of that has to be, you got to find who you are in Christ in order to love.
But you see, that's
Because if you don't, as a Christian, okay, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about all the other religions.
Okay.
But who we know, who we are in Christ, helps us love, because Christ always loved the church, as you know, as you have. It's told, it's said, love your wife as Christ loved the church. There's a reason for that, right? And then he obviously told the wives to submit. But if we're gonna truly talk about who we are, how to love, how to not have loving your neighbor as yourself, all these things come from the Bible. So if you're not using that as, you know, your walking stone, then there's no point.
It's either me being a man Catholic,
Okay.
and me being a man, you know, that's, you know, Catholic. At this point that I'm at, the point I'm at in my life, and
Right.
the period I'm at, I would not deal with a woman necessarily. She doesn't have to, it has to be a higher power. Like Christian, you understand? Like, it has to be a relationship established. Now, it's not for me to determine what your relationship is.
Yeah.
I'm nobody in that form, you understand?
Right.
But a relationship has to be established, because the reason is I have been in a relationship that a relationship failed is because one belief was in there, one was the other. And I was the person that didn't have those beliefs.
And that's where the evil yoke comes into.
yeah, but then that's where we tend to be wrong.
How?
Because if we, like, let's say, for example, you use the, you know, Christian, like the church, you know, stuff, and then you go to church,
Right.
you're a Christian, you fall in love with somebody that's maybe like a different religion.
Okay.
Right?
How can
Love,
you go
and
to
love is
church?
not, because you can't define love because of religion.
But we know what love is because of the Bible.
So love is within us.
Right.
So love, right? The moment you were born, you come out from the womb, right?
Right. Based off of our image in Christ.
So I don't want us.
You know I'm gonna keep
To me,
going.
because to me, I don't want to. See, we can't base love on just religion, because
We can, because we are Christian.
No, if we base love on religion, then
Okay.
you know the issue would be 2,000 years ago.
So how do you like to be loved?
No, I'm coming. 2,000 years ago. This is the inception of Christianity.
Okay.
So I'll be saying, be proud to pray Christianity, right? We didn't love. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
All I'm trying to say is God is love.
Right.
God is one.
Right.
Whichever way you view Jesus, I think Jesus is God. It's God that came on earth.
Right.
So if we believe in God, then God is love, because universally, when the creator, or you as a businessman, when you create a company, right, you want your company to flourish.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if you want your son to be successful in the future, that's love. You don't wish negative on nobody. That's love. It's not because of through a church or whatever it is, right? It's the nature. But because of the environment that we surround ourselves with, it really changes it for us.
Okay.
So the challenge is, religion came in to fight the environment, right? Struggles. If you're going through struggles, you could visit the Bible, read some verses that will strengthen, motivate, inspire you to come back to where you were before. But before we already developed love. It's not because of
Right, I got you.
through Christ. You know what I'm saying? We have already developed love since the inception, since the time we came on earth.
So let me, I gotta come in with that. And me as a Pentecostal believer, because that's, you know, we have different sects of Christianity, different ways of worship. I'm a Pentecostal believer, so I believe in Jesus, I believe in the Trinity, and I believe in the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Ghost is still alive. So the thing is that, as far as love, like as beings, as flawed beings, like we only know 10% of what love is.
Woo!
We only know 10%, so we can only give. We can only give that much, like, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is that God, like, we know the famous verse for God so loved the world that He gave His only Son.
Right.
So the thing is that there's a part of us that's missing that we need to obtain to enlarge our capacity to love the way He loved.
Yes.
Because the thing is that that's the only model that we have. Like, He gave His own Son for the world, that through that everybody would come back to relationship with God. You know what I'm saying? And know who we are, know where our source of strength, love, all that stuff comes from. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We do have the natural capacity to love.
We do.
It's true. But the thing is that, like, as a believer, I get my source from God.
And our love is conditioned.
Exactly.
Our love is conditional.
And most of us love from a disposition. That's the hardest thing.
So within you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within you was God.
Mm-hmm.
You were created in the image of God, like the science in the Bible.
Yeah.
Within you is God. You have to prepare your body to receive God, regardless of going to church. Regardless of going to church, reading the Bible. If you don't take care of your mind, soul, and body, you can never accept love.
But you also take.
You get what I'm saying? And take out the Bible, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about the mind, soul, and body. No, I'm coming. So when we talk about the Bible is like inspiration, motivation. You have the Bible, you have the Quran, you have the Vedas, you have the Gita, you have all these sections of scriptures, right? It is there to strengthen us. Just like reading books, you know what I'm saying? Books to strengthen your soul too. It all depends on your mind, soul, and body. Like people around you, number one, the kind of friends. If you have toxic friends, you're not gonna feel love because all they're doing is they come to you, they complain to you 24/7.
Bad energy.
Bad energy. You see what I'm saying? Regardless of you being loved through Christ or whatever it is, it's just not gonna happen.
Right, but how you react to that is the God that's in you, is the Christ that's in you, which is what we're saying that not everyone can love back to people like that, right? For example,
because they don't know themselves.
And they don't know themselves because of why.
See, that's what I said. That's the one thing I said. I said one thing we're speaking about before he tapped into it. I said knowing yourself and being open. Those two things have to happen. You got to be open to want to know more about yourself, the person that's next to you, and truly, like, you got to be in tune with yourself. You have to know who you are.
And it seems like that's the answer to this gap, right?
Yeah. I just feel like if we know ourselves, we give people the chance to express. We are open-minded. We share information together. Not shy. I'm not, not being negative.
Right.
Always staying positive. Love your neighbor as yourself. Believe in God. Do good. Love your neighbor as yourself. You're gonna be great.
Right. So I definitely enjoyed this conversation, y'all. I believe we haven't fully, got to the finish line, but I believe we've gotten somewhere. And I've learned a lot from both sides as a woman, and I'm very grateful for you guys for coming. Thank you. This has to be a part 2 because my question list. We didn't even get through the question list. So we have to.
You got to do relations.
We do. So thank you guys for joining.
I would love to say that I don't know.
Thank y'all. Don't forget every week here Saturday 5 p.m. Bye guys.